This is the real Magnolia right here. If what you see on TV, it ain't Magnolia. I'm Magnolia. I'm sorry, partner. But nigga lived past 94 and the nigga was on the street, nigga a gangster. F all that. Man, what the f you talking about? If a nigga lived past 94 and the nigga was out here off the porch, a nigga a gangster. It was read it and weep, nigga.
James Tapp Jr., aka Magnolia Slim, BKA Soulja Slim, born September 9th, 1977, died November 26, 2003. Today's feature is a mythological legend of sorts in rap music, and definitely one in New Orleans, Louisiana, that more than his songs, his universally loved personality lit up rooms and was easily identifiable by anyone in his presence. A likable guy with a passion for music, caught up in dangerous environments, almost forcing him into street life with little chance to escape. Sadly, this is the typical gangster rapper story that usually ends in death or prison, but also an appeal to fans and consumers who get to live a rebellious and destructive lifestyle through their favorite rapper who didn't get to choose their unfortunate positive existence. The music industry has used this appeal since the beginning of music, created in urban areas that running through their blood is all the stories of trauma, neglect, and oppression a record company needs to sell hope, excitement, and the illusion of triumph. Finally, we made it out. A rapper like Soulja Slim, had he made it to his intended destiny, was a record label's dream on one side of the coin and a nightmare on the other, because you knew each day could literally be the day destruction finds them and they either end up in jail or, much worse, dead. Slim was in the era where New Orleans in the late 90s, early 2000s was right about to make a serious push in rap music, staking their presence within the game as a future force to be reckoned with. Labels like Cash Money and of course Soulja Slim's label No Limit Records were on the rise, and Slim, a seasoned vet by that time underground, was slated to become a huge part of that on the mainstream level. In 2003, he and Cash Money rapper Juvenile, who had multiple platinum records under his belt by then, recorded a song called Slow Motion that became both artists' first #1 song on Billboard. That song was important because 1, it was originally a Soulja Slim song, and 2, because it was released on Juvie's Juvie the Great album a month after Soulja Slim was killed, shot in the face multiple times on his mother's front lawn. He was a month away from the world knowing who he was and getting to meet his charismatic energy that would for sure gain support and take him right to the top in that climate where again New Orleans was on the rise and no rapper maybe ever represented their culture better than Soulja Slim. Juvie's album went platinum along with Slow Motion, the only single and platinum record on the album. At 26, Soulja Slim was taken right before the life he always wanted was set to begin. What happened in the stunted growth story of Soulja Slim? Salute to E-Rux on Instagram for this request. It's your boy JC Stunted Growth Music. Rest in peace to Soulja Slim. Let's get it, man. Magnolia Slim was a rapper active since 1993, 16, 17 years old, born and raised in the Magnolia projects, where the 90s were some of the area's most violent and drug-infested times. Slim would later say of his city, if you survived past 1994 and you were outside at the time, he considered you a real one. Soulja was outside. He picked up music naturally from just being outside with nothing else to do on the block but freestyle. It's where his unique rhyme style was cut and became a staple for the street New Orleans sound. He released his first independent album in 1994 that sold 90,000 units and created major buzz in the city. He'd signed with No Limit Records before releasing his debut studio album that sold just under gold status. Slim became committed to rapping and releasing music, always in the studio making something new. Sadly, when he wasn't, he enjoyed a life in the streets, and it took him out of his glory earlier than expected. Stunt number 1, rap imitating life. In rap music, especially in Soulja Slim's era, where the term street rappers were on the rise, their appeal was that in an industry where a lot of artists were faking a persona of being from the streets and involved in street activity to sell records, opened the door for artists that really lived a street life and possibly still in the streets. It was a gift and a curse because it provided a way for these rappers to make legitimate money while telling stories that came natural to them, being really in or from environments those stories are created. The problem for those rappers is at some point either that street persona will be tested for its authenticity by street guys around you wanting what you have, or law enforcement picking up on your daily doings detailed in your songs that can get you sent to prison. Soulja Slim had no problem handling being tested in the streets as he was respected in that world, but he couldn't avoid the law, and that took away 5 years of his life spent in prison on armed robbery charges or violations that made it difficult for him to promote albums, do shows to gain a fan base, and make enough money to elevate himself, and shortened his output before he untimely met his demise. In 1998, he was serving prison time for parole violation during the release of his debut album With No Limit. The album was received well, especially in the streets, and gave Slim the title for New Orleans street music as the best doing it. The album peaked at 13 on Billboard and sold just under 500,000 records. A street classic nonetheless. One can only imagine what that success could have been had Slim been able to promote that album as a free man that played the game of art imitating real life a little different. Maybe realizing it's okay to speak about past incidences and stories, but you don't still have to be amongst the wolves in the streets to do it. When rappers fail to understand this, they are all shortened of what they had the potential to build in one way or the other. Prison also disrupted the promotion of his sophomore album in 2001, still selling 200,000 copies off his underground presence, as well as No Limit's rising buzz. Stunt number 2, going indie. Disgruntled with his share of earnings from previous studio albums, as well as the label feeling he was a great talent but more of a liability and investment risk with him going to prison during the release of his albums, leaving the label to spend more in promotion without him physically there to help move the return forward. Both Soulja's albums were beloved in the streets. He had a unique pocket where even if he didn't blow into a super mainstream artist, he had so much love from the streets, male and females, he could have carved out a nice niche for himself in a similar way to Tech 9 in Kansas City, only more street and much more connected to his fan base. There was no cap in his raps, as they would say today, so the possibilities were endless as far as how his reach in the streets could have grown. He was in the perfect time as well, with the rise of the South as a whole. But after 2 albums, Soulja Slim was released by No Limit and started his own label, Cutthroat Committee Records. On Cutthroat, his new album years later, 2002, sold 30,000 copies, a sharp decline from being with No Limit, Universal, and Priority Records. He re-released the album August 2003 and it peaked at 44 on the charts. Sadly, he wouldn't be around much longer to promote that either. Stunt number 3, untimely demise. In 2003, Soulja Slim wasn't a huge name yet mainstream, but he was just about on the rise at 26 years old. That year, he wrote a song called Slow Motion. While thinking of the right way to make the song go, he hit up Juvenile for a feature, and after hearing it, decided it best to place the song on Juvie's upcoming album, just so the song would gain more notoriety and traction that later Slim could have a bigger platform for future songs. Juvie agreed, and the record was a smash. But Soulja Slim did not get to see it all play out. On November 26, 2003, a month before Juvie's album with the future hit song released, a man walked up to Slim, who was hanging out on the front lawn of a house he just bought for his mother, and shot him 1 time in the chest, and as he laid on the ground, 3 times in the face. The man was caught months later in possession of the murder weapon, but released because no witnesses would testify against him. He lived and went on to be charged in multiple other murders before he was too killed in 2011. Soulja Slim's death immortalized him in hip-hop, as stories like these are told about him often enough to keep his name and work alive, even though he couldn't enjoy the successes of his greatness. Salute to Soulja Slim, much respect, rest in peace. It's your boy JC Stunner Growth Music, and I'm out.